Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Okay, now we're starting to go into the section of Abhideha.
昨天我们讲了 Sambandha， 今天我们开始讲 Abhideha。
And there are 4 lessons in this section.
Abhideha 这一部分分四课。
And 4 will deal with understanding Prabhupada's mission's roots.
第4课讲的是圣帕帕德使命的根源。
And I think perhaps to set the mood even a little bit nicer and deeper, we can join Srila Prabhupada chanting Giridhari Madhava.
为了让我们处在更好的一个心态、一个心情当中，我们先来听施拉帕帕的和圣帕帕德一起来唱诵 Giridhari Madhava。
So please chant along with him.
我们和帕帕德一起来唱。
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So his mission's seed.
首先，我们来看他使命的种子。
He received this instruction during his first meeting with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
他的使命，他得到的这个训示，是他第一次见他的灵育导师圣巴克西丹特萨拉瑟塔库尔的时候就给予他的。
You are educated young men. Why don't you preach Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message throughout the whole world?
他说：“你们是受过教育的年轻人，为什么不把主柴培涅玛哈帕布的讯息传播到全世界去呢？”
Now, you have to understand that this was the first meeting.
要理解的是，这个是他们第一次见面的时候，他的灵系导师就告诉他的。
At the time, Srila Prabhupada, he called himself a founder of Gandhi.
当时，施拉帕布达还将自己认为是甘地的追随者。
And when he was offering obeisances to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because that was the culture, to offer obeisances to a sadhu.
当时的社会传统是见到上人先要礼拜，所以圣帕帕的第一次刚刚见到Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur的时候，就在向他礼拜。
While he and his friend who had brought him were still offering dandavats, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave this instruction.
他和他带他来的朋友还在向Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur五体的礼拜，还没有起来，那个灵视导师就给了他训示。
So Prabhupada told us that his initial response was a bit of a challenge.
他告诉我们说，他对于这个训示的第一个反应是，他觉得这是一个很大的挑战。
Who will hear your Chaitanya's message? We are a dependent country.
他说我们还不是一个独立的国家，谁会听你关于主柴甘尼亚的讯息呢？
But then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur answered this question so forcefully.
之后，是Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur非常强有力的、坚定的回答了他这个问题。
The message of Mahaprabhu cannot wait.
他说，马哈帕布的讯息刻不容缓。
No political system,
没有任何的政治体系能够阻止他。
no social problem.
任何的社会问题也不能够阻止他。
It transcends time and space.
他穿越了时间和空间。
And it's the only message that is truly for the welfare and the upliftment of the whole human society.
这是唯一能够提升人类社会，唯一能够为人类社会提升的福祉有用的讯息。
So Prabhupada said he felt not only convinced, but very pleasantly defeated. He had been defeated.
他的灵视导师说的这番话，他不光是让他深信不疑，有坚定的信心，而且是他感觉他被打败了，但他被打败了，他却心悦诚服。
Is it audio? Is it audio or not? No, okay. So then later, this is in 69, Prabhupada is reflecting on everything that's happened.
69年的时候，圣帕帕德他在回顾所发生的一切。
You can all read this.
我们一起来读一下。
圣帕帕德，我出生在一个白沙马家庭，所以我可以理解他的传教。当然，他跟每个人都说了，但他在我身上发现些不同的东西，我很惊奇，我可以理解，这是一个可以给真正教观念的人。
Okay, for the benefit, I'm assuming there are a few here who don't read Chinese, correct? Yes? So, I was from a Vaishnava family, so I could appreciate what he was preaching. Of course, he was speaking to everyone, but he found something in me. I was so much struck with wonder. I could understand. Here is the proper person who can give a real religious idea. Yeah. And Prabhupada he in another place, Haribo, focus. He said that at that first meeting, he accepted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as his spiritual master.
在这次讲课当中，圣帕帕也谈到了，其实在第一次见到圣巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克的时候，他就立刻接受他为自己的灵性导师了。
Not officially, but in his heart.
虽然当时的接受并不是正式的，但他已经打心里面接受了。
So the biggest part of initiation then is acceptance.
其实，启迪很大一部分是从内心里面去接受一个灵性导师。
So now the seed begins to sprout.
现在这个种子开始发芽。
Now Prabhupada, he said he only had a handful of personal meetings with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
帕帕就说，他和他的灵性导师圣巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克会面的次数屈指可数。
But in those meetings, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him some very deep instructions.
但是就在这仅有的几次会面当中，巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克却给了他极其深刻的训示。
The context of this particular quote, yes, he said, exchanging looks will abide. He likes to hear. He does not go away. I have marked him. I will accept him as my disciple. The context is that on a parikrama in Vrindavan, the party had stopped in Koshi. Koshi is a place. K-O-S-I, it's a place in Vrindavan.
这一段话发生的背景是这样的：有一次在本达的绕拜的时候，他们的绕拜的整个绕拜团体，他们到了 Koshi 的地方。
And on that particular, this was the last day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's visit, and he was to leave the next day. So devotees, the pilgrims, they got the opportunity either to stay and listen to him, or they could go on parikrama.
这一天就是圣巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克到本达的最后一天，第二天他就要离开了。于是这个朝圣团的所有人现在就里面有两个机会，一个可以他们可以选择继续绕拜，也可以选择留下来听听讲课。
And Srila Prabhupada, he took that opportunity with only a few others really, while everyone else went on parikrama. He chose to stay and listen, to actually listen to what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wanted to teach.
朝圣团当中，只有少数的人留下来听课了，其中一位就是圣帕帕的，他抓住了这个机会听听讲课。
And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was so impressed with this that he initiated him the next year. This was yeah.
巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克对他印象极其深刻，第二年就给了他启迪。
Yeah. He helped the Gaudiya Math devotees to establish a center. He was, at the time, Prabhupada was having his pharmaceutical business there in Allahabad, and he took an opportunity to raise funds, to actually help to find a place, to set them up, basically.
当时施拉帕特在阿拉哈巴德在做他的药品生意，于是他就筹集资金，帮助巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克的高迪玛的建立了一个中心。
Interesting point is that Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for the first time in 1922, but his actual initiation was not until 1933.
有一点有意思的是，圣帕帕的第一次见到他的灵性导师圣巴基斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔克是在1922年，但实际接受启迪却是1933年。
11 years.
中间时隔11年。
So he was prepared. He was prepared to wait.
他是做好了准备，等待这么久。
There were circumstances surrounding that.
当然，他有他具体的处境。
but still, he waited.
但依然他还是等待了那么久。
So there should be a waiting period.
那其实接受启迪之前是应该有一个等待的时间的。
Sometimes devotees are too impulsive.
有时候奉献者是比较冲动的，
They want the initiation immediately.
希望立刻能得到启迪。
If they've been a devotee for 6 months or 1 year, they think, I'm entitled. I should be initiated.
有的时候奉献者会说，我已经做奉献者6个月了，已经1年了，所以我有资格。
But we should think more about our qualification more than the amount of time that's passed.
所以说我们谈到资格的时候，要看真正的资格，而不是经历了多长时间。
Have we fulfilled the requirements?
我们是不是真正达到了启迪的这些标准要求？
The Prabhupada's basic, requirements of chanting 16 rounds, following the principles for a minimum of 1 year.
圣帕帕的给我们的标准，启迪的最低标准就是念诵每天16圈，遵守4项规范原则，至少1年。
Nowadays we have the disciples course the devotees have to take and pass.
现在我们又有了门徒课程，奉献者得学习门徒课程，并且通过考试。
So they understand a little bit more deeply of what it means. It's a lifelong commitment.
学习了门徒课程以后，奉献者就能更深入的去理解到底启迪是什么意思。启迪是一生的承诺。
What's the position of our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada?
学了门徒课程，我们也就更能深刻的理解我们的创办灵性导师圣帕帕德的位置是什么。
What's the position of the Diksha and Shiksha gurus who are working cooperatively under Prabhupada's direction in his mission?
我们也就能够理解 Diksha Guru 启迪灵性导师和 Shiksha Guru 训示灵性导师是如何在我们的创办灵性导师圣帕帕德的训示下共同合作来推动这个使命发展的。
So all this has to be understood very clearly, so that one has a very deep understanding of what one is committing to.
只有了解了这些概念以后，深刻的了解这些概念，我们才知道我们要投入一生去承诺做到的到底是什么。
Now, of course, as Prabhupada liked to hear, he also liked to speak.
圣帕帕德喜欢聆听，他也喜欢演讲。
And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also said that. He said, one who likes to hear will also like to speak.
圣帕帕
Bhaktisiddhanta.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur也说了，爱听的人也必然爱讲。
And Prabhupada was now getting known as a very great orator, a poet, and in one particular Vyas Puja offering that he gave in 1935, he composed this very, very beautiful, eloquent poem that really, really deeply touched Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
人们都知道，圣帕帕德是一个卓越的演说家，他也是一个非常出色的诗人。在他的灵性导师的维亚萨puja的时候，他写了一首诗，让他的灵性导师深受触动。
In this particular couplet, it captures Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's mood of preaching against the Mayavadis.
他的诗当中的这2句就准确的描述了他的灵性导师是怎样他的卓越贡献去打败玛雅瓦底。
Absolute is sentient thou hast proved, impersonal calamity thou hast moved.
他的诗歌的大意是：你证明了绝对者的感知力，你消除了非人格的灾难。
Yeah. And when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur heard this,
当圣巴克什的萨拉斯塔库尔听到他供奉的这首诗的时候，
it so deeply impressed him and pleased him that then he gave the instructions to other devotees who were engaged in publishing work that whatever he writes, publish it.
圣巴克什的萨拉斯塔库尔听了这首诗以后，他深受触动，也极其被取悦。于是他就告诉负责书籍出版 杂志出版的奉献者说，无论他写什么，都给他出版。
Now Prabhupada was getting known. He was quite a powerful preacher, even though he was still in Grihastha life.
即使当时的圣帕帕的依然在过居士生活 Grihastha， 但是他已经越来越出名了，因为他的有力的传教。
And different senior devotees, they wanted to get him for their own mat.
很多资深的奉献者都想拉拢他，让他加入他们的修院。
In Bombay, one Bhakti Saranga Maharaj, who was the president of that particular branch of the mat, he wanted that Prabhupada should come and he should take charge.
在孟买 Bhakti Saranga Maharaj 他就希望圣帕帕能够加入他们来管理他的 mat。
But he makes this appeal to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
那于是他就向圣 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 来请示。
Well, please note, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's very prophetic reply.
我们看圣 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 是如何完美的回答他的。
It is better that he is living outside your company. He will do. When the time comes, he will do everything himself. You don't have to recommend him.
他回答说，他最好和你们分开，在外面住，他会做的。时机到来的时候，他自己会做到一切的，不用建议他这么做。
Why did he say this?
为什么他要这么说呢？
Because in a very important meeting that Prabhupada had, one of the few handful of meetings he had with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at Radhakund, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave him some other very important instructions.
因为在圣帕帕的与他的灵性导师极少的几次会面当中的一次会面，在 Radhakund 的会面的时候，他的灵性导师给了他极其重要的一个讯息。
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, Agun Jalbi, there will be fire. One day there will be fire in the Chaitanya Gaudiya Mat, and that fire of party interest will spread and destroy.
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 说，Agun Jalbi 说有一天，加克达高地亚是会起火的，当它另一个烈火会蔓延，造成毁灭。
So he could already see.
他已经能够看到未来的倾向。
He could already see the mood of the devotees. Some of the leading devotees, they were already starting to become separatists. They were starting to be very narrow-minded. They were thinking it was my way or the highway. It's my mat, nobody else's. They were starting to position themselves. So he could see in the future that after he disappeared, that there would be this fire and separatism that would spread.
他已经能够看到这些领导的一些奉献者的心态，看到他们已经在搞分裂，已经在找自己的位置，于是他就能够预见到，在他离开之后，必然会有党派纷争的烈火。
He also gave Prabhupada perhaps one of the most important instructions.
他也给了圣帕帕一个训示，这个或许算是最重要的一个训示。
No. Okay, if you ever get money, print books.
这个训示就是一有钱就去印书。
Why?
为什么呢？
Because we have the Chota Mridanga, just like this small one here, 2 heads. It can be heard for a short distance.
我们现在看到这个两头的 Mridanga 叫做 Chota Mridanga， 这个 Mridanga 被击打的时候，只有短距离的人才能听到。
But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he referred to the printing press as the Brihat Mridanga, the great Mridanga that could be heard around the world.
而圣巴蒂什的萨勒斯特帕克把印刷事业比作是 Brihat Mridanga， 它的响声能够响彻全世界，都能够被听到。
And years later, when Prabhupada was arriving in Los Angeles in 1975, he told the very large assembly of devotees that I only tried to follow the instruction of my guru.
10年后的1975年，当圣帕布帕德到了洛杉矶，面对一大群奉献者讲话的时候，他说：“我只不过是在 追随我灵性导师的训示。
He told me that if you ever get money, print books.
我的灵性导师说，你一有钱就去印书。
My humble request to you all is that you print as many books in as many languages and distribute profusely throughout the world.
我卑微的请求是，你尽可能多的去印刷尽可能多种语言的书籍，大量的在全球范围内去派发。
Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is soon to leave in 1936.
1936年，也是圣巴蒂什丹的萨拉斯蒂塔库尔即将离开的日子的时候。
And just a couple of weeks prior to that, Prabhupada writes him and asks him what he should do, what service should he perform.
在巴蒂什丹的萨拉斯蒂塔库尔离世前几周前，他给他写信说，我应该做些什么服务呢？
I'm a householder. Sometimes I give monetary help while I cannot give you direct service. Is there any particular service I can do?
信中他就问到说，我是一个居士，有时我无法给予直接的服务时，我就给一些资金上的帮助。有没有什么具体的服务我可以做？
Well, Prabhupada was thinking that he wasn't doing enough.
他感觉自己做的还不够。
Actually, Srila Prabhupada, he always thought he wasn't doing enough.
这是释迦牟尼的始终如一的心态，他总是觉得自己做的还不够。
He worked day and night,
他日夜不停的在服务。
foregoing his personal conveniences, even sleep, just to, wholeheartedly engage in the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and accomplish as much as he possibly could before he left this world.
他不顾个人的便利与否，他甚至牺牲了睡眠的时间，就想全心全意的、全力以赴的投入到巴基斯坦的萨拉斯塔克的使命，尽可能多的将这个使命传遍全世界。
So even as a householder, actually he was doing a lot of service.
实际上，在他做居士的时候，他已经做了很多服务了。
He was already writing.
已经在开始写作了，
He was giving class.
在讲课。
He was giving, monetary contributions.
甚至在提供资金上的支持，
He was helping in so many different ways.
他在各方面都在提供着帮助。
But still he thought, I must do more.
但他依然觉得自己还必须做得更多。
And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur replies him just 2 weeks before his departure.
圣巴蒂斯坦的萨拉斯蒂塔会在他离世2周前就回复了帕提哈德的信。
Read this. Read
来
this.
读一下。
Bolo.
我对你
完全有信心，你能够用英语将我的想法和观点解释给人们，这对你和听者都会非常有益。
Continuation of that.
继续。
如果你符合这个使命，将主宰他家的教导交给人们，让人们对其产生与众不同的印象，你就能够将自己变成一名非常出色的英语传教士。我对此充满希望。
I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people. This will do much good to yourself as well as to your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's preaching in the people, he said. Yeah. So this Abai, he recognized to be the same instruction that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had given him in their first meeting in 1922.
帕帕德在读到这封信的时候，他意识到，其实这个信里面的训示和1922年他首次见到他灵性导师的时候，他接受的训示是一样的。
He took this as a final confirmation.
他认为，他把这一封信当中训示当作是对他使命的最终的确认。
Now there was no doubt as to the purpose of his life.
现在他对他人生的目标已经毫无疑问。 分了。
And it was that desire, that burning desire to fulfill the instruction of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur that was always running through his veins. It was the life force. He wanted to fulfill that desire, whatever it took.
这种想要完成他的灵性导师训示的这种炽热的愿望，一直流淌在他的血液中。他想不惜一切去完成他灵性导师的使命。
And at this point, in history, there was a lot of turmoil. There was the World War.
在这个历史时期，世界范围内有一些动乱，比如说二战。
This was 1944.
这是在1944年。
And so, Prabhupada, kind of in response to that, in response to really all of the world's problems, he began Back to Godhead magazine, single-handedly.
算是对二战，也算是对整个世界范围的一个动乱的一个回应。圣帕帕的他就孤身一人，他亲自开始创刊《回归守神》杂志。
He wrote all the articles himself.
所有的文章都是他自己撰写的。
He also typed them all up.
甚至都是他自己打出来的。
He saw to the printing.
他也自己就找到印刷。
And then also to the distribution.
印刷也是他来做，也是他亲自派发。
He told us that once while he was distributing in the 104 degree heat, which is like 50 degrees or something like this, he suffered heat stroke.
他也曾经说，他在104华氏温度，大概40-50摄氏度的那个高温的天气，他出去派书，中了暑。
So it was never easy.
所以说派书的过程从来都不容易的。
We may think that Prabhupada is the, Shaktivesh avatar. He's the Mahabhagavat devotee. And there should just be like the Silk Road and everything should go so smoothly.
我们可能会想，他不是 Shaktivesh avatar， 他被赋予的力量化身了，他不是
Mahabhagavat
是伟大的灵魂吗？理应他的道路应该是布满丝绸的，是一帆风顺的。
But actually, it was never easy.
但实际上，他的道路也从未容易过。
Because it's the nature of the material world.
物质世界的本质就是这样。
And it's really the nature of Kali Yuga.
也是卡利年代的本性。
Where the whole atmosphere is really surcharged in opposition to the practice of bhakti.
整个卡利年代物质世界的这个气氛就是充满了对于奉爱修习的障碍。
So the nature of preaching in Kali Yuga is that you have to, go head to head with materialists, and you have to overcome opposition after opposition.
所以在卡利年代要传教的本性就是传教的特征就是你必须和物质主义者齐头并进，必须不断的去应对他们抛来的这些障碍。
So one has to be very, very determined.
所以必须要非常的有决心。
Determined,
有决心。
patient,
有信心。
and enthusiastic.
还要有热心。
You need all three.
这三样都必不可少。
Because it takes a huge amount of effort to persevere.
因为要坚持下去是需要下很大功夫的。
Sometimes failure becomes a pillar to success.
有时失败也会成为我们成功的支柱。
As we'll see in the unfolding of Prabhupada's mission, it's not that every endeavor of his turned out to be a grand success.
我们看到随着圣帕帕德使命的展开推进，他并不是他所做的每一件事情、每一项努力都是成功的。
But it was a step. It was a step forward.
但这些没有成功的努力，却为他进一步的 往前走奠定了基础。
An opportunity for him to more finely hone his presentation according to time, place, and circumstance.
正是因为这些失败的经历，让他更好的、更精准的调整他的传教策略，根据传教的对象、时间和地点进行调整。
So at this point, Prabhupada was writing to various people. He wrote to Gandhi.
在这个阶段，圣帕帕就开始给各种领袖写信，其中一位就是甘地。
Just 6 months before Gandhi was assassinated.
这是在1947年，是在甘地被刺杀前的6个月，他收到的是圣帕帕的给他写的信。
And the letter actually reads like a prophecy almost.
这封信好像就像是一个预言。
One devotee with a loud voice, please read this letter.
我们找一位声音很大的奉献者来给我们读一下这封信。
Loud.
因此，你应该注意我这样一个微不足道的朋友的解释，除非你及时退出政治，100%的投入到传播佛家梵歌的工作中，因为这是伟大的灵魂真正的职责，否则你不得不像墨索里尼、希特勒、图修斯、丘吉尔或劳和乔治那样很不光荣的死去。我只想请求你退出政治，哪怕就1个月，我们来讨论一下国家梵歌。我相信你一定会从我们的讨论结果中接受新的光芒，这不仅对你有利，也将利于整个世界，因为我知道你是真诚、诚实而有德性的人。
So Prabhupada writes, I am your unknown friend. You should therefore take a note of warning from your insignificant friend like me, that unless you retire timely from politics and engage yourself 100% in the preaching work of Bhagavad Gita, which is a real function of the Mahatmas, you shall have to meet with such inglorious deaths as Mussolini, Hitler's, Tojas, Churchill's, or Lord George's met with. I would only request that you retire from politics at least for a month only, and let us have discussion on the Bhagavad Gita. I am sure, thereby, that you shall get a new light from the result of such discussions, not only for your benefit, but for the benefit of the world at large, as I know that you are sincere, honest, and a moralist. So, 6 months later,
就在帕帕的写这封信6个月之后，
he's assassinated by his bodyguard.
甘地就被他的保镖刺杀了。
Now, as to whether the letter actually reached him, that's, a mystery. He was surrounded by so many secretaries, hard to know.
因为他在这封信被送到甘地那里的时候，因为他有派到很多，周围有很多的秘书，所以因为各种障碍，也没有让他能够读到。
So he wrote to Gandhi, he wrote to government officials.
帕帕不光给甘地写了信，还给政府的各个官员写了信，
all with practically no response.
几乎都没有收到什么回应。
Yeah. So now, he gets an opportunity.
现在他有了一个机会。
On a business trip to one small city called Jhansi.
有一次，他去湛西出差，
He meets a client who wants to invite him to return to present his spiritual message.
他遇到一个客户，他的这个客户就请求他重新来呈现他的灵性的讯息。
This was to be presented at a local Ayurvedic college.
请他在当地的阿育吠达大学来呈现他所要传达的灵性讯息。
Actually, the student who helped him turned out to be Prabhupada's first initiated disciple.
这个帮他在这个艾维达学校组织这个活动的学生，最后成了圣帕布帕德的第一位门徒。
Acharya Prabhakar, his name was.
但是 Acharya Prabhakar 是他的名字。
So when Prabhupada went there, then he gained access to a particular property.
正是在这里的一次讲课，他有机会获得了在那边的一片地。
It was quite a large property. It had several buildings on it.
那是很大的一片地，而且已经有几栋建筑了。
And he envisioned that he would use this place as a base for his mission.
他的计划，这就是他要开展的使命的根据地。
So the owner of this property was quite pious, and so he was sympathetic to Prabhupada's message, and he allowed him the use of this place.
这片地的主人，他也是很虔诚的人，他也对于很认同圣帕布帕德的使命，他就想让圣帕布帕德来用这块地。
There he creates what he called the League of Devotees.
就是在这里，圣帕布帕德成立了奉献者联盟。
Now this is very significant.
这是很有意义的一件事。
Although this particular endeavor did not meet with success,
因为说，虽然说，这个努力并没有多大的成功。
but there Prabhupada crafts the kind of the origins of the 7 purposes of ISKCON.
但就是在这个山西省，在这个他成立的奉献者联盟，圣帕布帕德起草了现在被我们所知的 ISKCON 的7大宗旨。
He has a grand opening ceremony. Many dignitaries come. He lectures on the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
在开幕典礼的时候，他邀请了很多尊贵的客人，他也讲了国家梵歌。
But he was already envisioning at this point, this was 1953, he was envisioning this worldwide movement.
这是在1956年发生的事情，那时候他已经在畅想即将要开展的全球范围内的一场灵性运动。
13 years before he actually registers ISKCON in New York in 1966.
这是在1966年，圣帕帕德在纽约成立了国际克什纳知觉协会，而在13年前的1953年，他就写下了现在的 ISKCON 的7大宗旨。
So you see, this is the first purpose.
就是
Correct? Is that the first purpose? What are you
这
doing
是
there?
奉献者联盟
Stay
写
awake.
的第一条。
Is that the first purpose? Very important for you. You should know the 7 purposes of ISKCON.
ISKCON 的7大宗旨是什么？我们需要知道。
So this is the origin of that. We'll read the more fine-tuned, edited version that actually was put in the original registration. But this is the origin. It's very close. Very close.
这个是现在我们所知的7大宗旨的雏形。一会儿我们再看它最终的确立的版本。现在我们先看原版。
Read this one, please.
我们一起来读一下第一条。
信了将整个印度民族及全世界传播灵性知识，一直生活的时候，目的是教授普通大众灵性生活的技巧。
Now, as it turns out, there are other persons that were eyeing this property.
当时后来又有一个人看上了这片地。
And it became a kind of a center of intrigue. Anyway, a long story short, the owner gave in to this other group, and Prabhupada was forced to vacate.
然后这个地的主人就把这片地又给了相中这片地的人，所以圣帕帕德就不得不离开。
So we can say that door closed.
我可以说这扇门算是关上了。
But we'll see that another door opens.
一扇门关上了，另一扇门又在向他打开。
Prabhupada goes to visit his family in Calcutta.
圣帕帕德就回到加尔各答的家。
She was not very supportive in assisting him.
他的妻子
casual exchange, Prabhupada, he asked his wife, "You have to choose between me or tea. Either tea goes or I go." She replied, "Give up tea drinking or give up my husband?" "Well, I will have to give up my husband then." Prabhupada said, "Of course." She thought I was joking.
在圣帕帕德和他妻子的一次貌似漫不经心的一次对话当中，他说：“你要我还是要茶？你来选，要么茶走，要么我走。”于是他的妻子回答说：“放弃喝茶还是放弃丈夫？好吧，那我还是放弃丈夫吧。”当然，他觉得我在开玩笑。
At around the same time,
也是在同时，
when Prabhupada was going, he went out for business.
也是同时，圣帕帕德就出去做生意。
His wife took his most worshipable Bhagavatam to the market to trade it for tea biscuits.
在圣帕帕德出去做生意的时候，他的妻子把他最尊崇的圣典国家法坛的译稿拿出去换了茶点。
Prabhupada said at first he felt very depressed.
圣帕帕德说，他刚开始他觉得极其的失望。
But then a wave of resolution came upon him. That now it was very clear his family life was finished.
但很快他就升起一股决心，现在是他需要终结他的居士生活的时候了。
The next door that opens is that he becomes close with one of his god brothers who had encouraged him all along, Bhakti Pragan Keshava Maharaj, and he encourages him to take sannyas.
接下来为他打开的一个善门，就是他去找他一直以来在鼓励他的神兄弟 Bhakti Pragan
Keshava Maharaj.
然后正是这位神兄弟鼓励他接受散家洗。
Now early on, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur several times came to Prabhupada in visions, dreams, requesting he take sannyas. And Prabhupada said at that point he wasn't really ready, he wasn't prepared, and he felt, that this wasn't the time.
其实，在他的这个神兄弟请求他接受。已经有好几次出现在他梦中，要请他要接受三家洗，但那时候他还觉得自己没有准备好。
And Prabhupada will speak now. He's reflecting on the mercy that was bestowed upon him by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur through this god brother.
圣帕帕德在反思这件事情的时候，他认为这是他的灵性导师圣巴克斯萨拉斯蒂塔库尔通过他的神兄弟赐予他仁慈。
So you can listen and you can read the text.
译文就是现在看到的这段。
My God, he insisted that Giridhari Prabhu, not he insisted me, practically my spiritual master insisted me solely that you accept. Because without accepting the renounce order to die, nobody can become rich. But unwillingly,
So, particularly at that time in India, it was really the sannyasis who were highly revered, and they were known as the preachers.
那时候只有散家洗才会受到印度社会的尊重，也只有他们才被认可为传教士。
Because that could be their full focus.
因为散家洗才会全力的专注在传教事业。
So, in the quest to preach, to fulfill the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada humbly accepts the renounced order.
为了传教的目的，为了彻底的去执行他灵性导师的训示，这时候圣帕帕德就接受了三压系。
Then he begins to work on what he calls his life's work, really.
之后他就展开了他一生的使命。
He's now in Vrindavan, and he has started the Bhagavatam.
这是在文达文，他开始了他的圣典国萨瓦坛的评注。
And from 62 to 64, he's able to translate and publish the first canto of the Bhagavatam.
1962年到64年，他就已经翻译评注完圣典国萨瓦坛的第一篇，并且进行了出版。
But he admits his shortcomings.
他也承认了他的不足的地方。
That is his humility.
这只是他谦卑的展示。
Our capacity of presenting the matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail, and there will be so many literary discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, discrepancies in spite of our honest attempt to present it in the proper way, but we are sure that with all our faults, But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this on account of its being an honest attempt for glorifying the the Almighty Great, so now badly needed. Bolo, bolo, bolo.
我们一起来读一下。
我们菩萨的语言，尤其是能代语呈现这一体旨的能力，当然有缺陷。即便我们真诚的努力以合适的方式呈现，依然会有许多文学上的偏差。
It's an honest attempt. I'm sorry.
但是我们确实在这方面，我们存在缺陷。人们依然会考虑这个体制的严肃性，社会上的领导者们依然会接受，因为这是荣耀全能的伟大人物的诚实尝试，而这位全能的伟大人物是目前人们迫切需要的。
It's important that Prabhupada speaks about an honest attempt.
有一点很重要，圣帕帕德说这是诚实的尝试。
Because so many of the commentators, the translators and commentators on, the Vedic literatures, instead of trying to remain faithful to the original meaning, the tendency was to screw out their own meaning, present their own philosophy or their own particular movement, their cause, using it. But Prabhupada didn't want to do that. He wanted to remain faithful to the original text and let Krishna speak.
因为在翻译和评注伟大经典的一些翻译者和评注者，有太多的人只是掺杂了自己太多的想法，以及自己要传扬的信条，自己要去发动的运动，并没有忠实的去呈现伟大经典的本质原意，而圣帕帕德却想诚实的去呈现伟大经典的原意。
So although English was not his first language,
所以说英语不算圣帕帕德的第一语言。
still, he understood the message was so important, and this was the instruction that was given to him, that if he would just remain faithful to the original text and presented it as it was, then there would be success.
但是因为圣帕帕德深刻的理解到他要传扬的这个讯息的重要性，而且这是他灵性导师的讯息，于是他坚信只要他忠实的去呈现这个讯息的原意，一定会取得成功。
When Prabhupada published the first canto, he started to approach very big people, people in big positions, high positions. This is the Prime Minister of India at the time. He either gifts him or sells him, I don't know which, the first canto.
圣帕帕在出版了圣典的大法第一篇之后，他就去接近一些位高权重的人，比如说这里的这是给他是印度的当时的副总理，他给他赠送了一部圣典的大法第一篇。
And now his dream begins to unfold.
现在他的梦想慢慢的展开，开始实现。
He reflects in 1976 on a morning walk.
76年的一次清晨散步，圣帕帕的回顾到。
He said, I planned that I must go to America. Generally, they go to London. I did not go to London. I was simply dreaming how to go to New York. I was scheming whether I should go this way through Tokyo, Japan, or that way. Which way is cheaper? And I was targeting to New York always. Sometimes I was dreaming that I have come to New York.
你来读一下。
我做了计划，我必须去美国。他们一般都去伦敦，我没去伦敦。我只是梦想着怎样去纽约。我在谋划，究竟是要这样走，经由日本东京，还是那样走？哪样走更便宜？我一直将目标锁定在纽约，有时梦到我来到了纽约。
Now, Prabhupada, he's at Radha Damodar. He's peacefully translating.
这时候圣帕帕的是在 Radha Damodar 庙宇在安静的翻译。
And he would often meditate on the samadhi of Srila Rupa Goswami.
他常常会对着Srila Rupa Goswami的萨玛迪冥想。
That is situated just in the back of the temple.
因为Rupa Goswami 的萨玛迪就在庙宇的后面。
He would often pray to Srila Rupa Goswami.
他常常也向Srila Rupa Goswami 祈祷。
And he describes how Srila Rupa Goswami came to him.
他描述到Srila Rupa Goswami 是怎样接近他。
And inspired him to now act on the instruction that was given to him by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
是怎样来到他的梦里鼓励他开始去执行圣巴克斯丹他萨拉斯蒂塔克给予他的训示。
But how would he do that?
他是怎么做的呢？
He was a mendicant.
他还是一个出家人。
He had no money.
没有钱。
He was living through the system of madhukari, meaning to say, just like a bumblebee, he went from shop to shop to get a little bit of, whatever they would offer him, because that's the system of how the system of which the mendicants support themselves in Vrindavan.
文达班跟马杜卡瑞这些僧人是怎么为生的？就是去到各家各户去乞讨一些食物，或者其他的必需品为生。人家给什么他就接受什么。
So he had nothing.
所以他等于是一无所有。
No means.
没有任何的资源。
But he remembered an acquaintance.
但他想起来了有一位熟人。
This Sumati Morarji, who was the president, the chairman of the board of Scindia steam freighter lines, cargo lines.
他想起了Sumati Morarji 这位女士，她是森迪亚货船公司的一位负责人。
Now it's interesting that this particular person's initial service allowed her to do this ultimate service of allowing Prabhupada passage to go to America.
这位Sumati Morarji 他之所以最后能够为圣帕帕德做这么大的一个服务，让他能够得以去美国，是因为他最初的一个对圣帕帕德的一个小小的服务。
Because many years prior,
因为多年前
when Prabhupada went to the Kumbh Mela,
Srila Prabhupada 去到了
which is a huge gathering of pilgrims that goes periodically to this place, the confluence of 3 holy rivers in India, and it's said to take bath in that sacred waters, the sacred waters at that particular time. It guarantees one liberation.
库巴梅拉处在3条圣河的交界处，所以会有大量的朝圣者去到那里。据说在3条圣河的交界处的这个地方，如果沐浴的话，一个人就必然能得到解脱。
So she was there as well.
当时 Swami Maharaja 就在那里。
As a pious Hindu.
他是一位虔诚的印度的教徒。
And she saw Prabhupada.
他看到了圣帕帕的。
At that time, no one really knew who he was.
当时圣帕帕德还并不为人所知。
He certainly wasn't famous.
也没有什么名气。
But she recognized him as a sadhu.
但 Swami Maharaja 却认出他就是一位萨度圣人。
And she saw him chanting.
看到他在那里念诵。
So just her piety, perhaps, recognizing him as a great saintly person, she offered her obeisances to him.
或许就是因为他的虔诚之心，他看到圣帕帕的以后，就是认定他是一个圣人，于是他就向他顶拜了。
And she just gave him some donation.
也给了他一些布施。
And that initial service,
就是因为这最初的一点服务，
just bowing down to such a saintly person
只是对于圣人的一个顶拜，
and giving a little donation,
给了他一些布施，
it paved the way for her to do more service and perhaps the ultimate service now for Prabhupada.
这就给他奠定了一个基础，让他以后有机会为圣帕帕的做更多的服务，而他后来做的这个服务可以说是终极的最重要的一个服务。
He next met her in Bombay when he had published the first canto, and she took a set.
第二次见圣帕帕的是在孟买，当施拉帕帕给他一部圣典国小谈第一篇的译著。
Shortly thereafter, he went to her to ask her if she would please give him passage on one of her ships going to the United States.
再一次见面的时候，施拉帕帕的就问他能不能给他一张免费的船票，让他能够去到美国。
At first, she didn't want to do it.
刚开始他是不愿意的，
She thought Prabhupada was too old.
他觉得圣帕帕的年纪太大了。
She said, Swamiji will die in America.
他说：“斯瓦米奇，你会死在美国的，
It's very cold there.
那里太冷了，
There is nothing to eat.
吃的也没有。
People are very sinful.
那里的人很罪恶。”
And again, she told him, you're going to die there.
他反复的劝圣帕帕的说：“你会死在那里的，要去的话。”
So at first she was reluctant.
刚开始是不愿意给他传票，
But Prabhupada was very determined.
但圣帕帕的是那么的坚定，
And again, he appealed to her.
他反复的请求他，
And he finally convinced her.
最终还是说服了他。
And then she gave him passage on the Jaladuta.
于是这个Maharaja 就给了他一张船票，让他登上了加拉杜塔号。
And Prabhupada boards the Jaladuta.
圣帕帕的登上了加拉杜塔号，
And he makes the more than 1 month journey.
这一旅行就超过了1个月，
And that was not easy.
很不容易。
Crossing the sea is a very, very intense experience.
穿越海洋，这海上一路并非常的辛苦。
The seas were very rough,
因为波涛汹涌，
tossing the ship every which way.
这船就被颠簸的起起伏伏。
Prabhupada, he explained that he suffered intense seasickness.
圣帕帕就说他严重的晕船。
And for those who have never traveled on a ship, this is very intense.
没坐过船去旅行的人可能不知道，晕船是非常严重的，非常难受的。
There's no relief.
根本没办法去缓解。
So Prabhupada, in that condition, he suffers 2 heart attacks.
就在那样的情况下，圣帕帕德也经历了2次心脏病发作。
And he's convinced that if another one comes, he will not be able to stay in his body.
他觉得要再来一次心脏病的话，他肯定就活不下去了。
On the night of that 3rd day, Krishna appears.
就在第3天的晚上，圣帕帕德Krishna 就出现在他的梦里了。
Rowing a boat.
他梦到 Krishna 在亲自为他下船。
And he now guarantees Prabhupada that if he makes this journey and he goes to the West, that Krishna would supply whatever he needed for his success.
在梦里 Krishna 就鼓励他这一旅行会顺利的，而且 Krishna 会为他送来各种他需要的资源，让他的使命获得成功。
So although this is a drawing,
我们看到这个这个是一幅画。
the simple fact is that Prabhupada didn't have much more than what we see here.
我们看到这幅画上也能看出圣帕帕德带的没多少东西，实际上也是这样，他没多少东西。
A couple sets of clothes.
只有几件欢喜的衣服。
He wears these quite peculiar looking pointed white rubber sadhu shoes,
他穿着典型的白橡胶萨布圣人鞋，
which were very common in the day.
在他的那个时代是很常见的。
He has a trunk and, he has some of his manuscripts in there.
他的箱子里面放着他一些译稿。
He says a big bag of cereal.
还有他要做饭用的一袋食材。
And he has his very famous 3-tier cooker.
还有他的著名的3层的一个厨具。
Very interesting contraption.
这个很有意思。
Because it has 3 compartments.
因为这个它有3层。
I know of this because we used one.
这个厨具它很有意思，因为我也亲自用过。
In the early days when we first came to China,
在中国殖民的早期，我们刚来到中国的时候，
we used it to cook in.
我也是用它来做饭的。
So on the bottom tier, one puts the dal.
第一层放的是绿豆汤。
Means dal and water.
当然有绿豆，有放水。
And the steam from the heat that's coming from underneath, while it's on the burner, it creates steam that goes out through some holes on the perimeter, just above that particular canister.
因为这个3层的地方，第一层在煮绿豆汤，而绿豆汤煮的时候，它的那个蒸汽就能够给第2层提供热量，煮第2层放的东西。
The steam goes up. The second compartment is rice.
第2层我们正好做的是米饭，
So it cooks the rice.
所以这个蒸汽就正好用来蒸米饭。
The steam goes further up.
这个蒸汽又继续往第3层走。
The top compartment has vegetable in its side.
第3层我们做的是蔬菜。
So it steams the vegetables.
也就把这个蔬菜蒸熟了。
Then the top is shaped like a small wok.
在上面的话是一个饼。
Wok? You know what a wok is? You know what a wok is or not? Then what are you translating? A wok is what you cook in. A cook. Who's a cook here? Wok. A wok. What's it called in Chinese? You know, a wok you cook in, very common in Chinese. Everyone uses it.
It's not a pot.
Every Chinese person uses one. You don't know? Well, it's a common word. So, the top is shaped like that, so you take it off. The problem is she's not a cook. She has no idea what I'm talking about. She's not a cook. She doesn't know. Say it. Tell them you don't
我
know.
不做饭，所以我不知道这个过程。
So the thing is, you take the wok off and you put it on a flame. You put a little ghee or oil inside, and you put some spices in it, and you roast the spices, and then you put that in the vegetable. You put half in the vegetable, half in the dal. Okay, and then you have a complete meal.
那是这样一来，我们在这个炒锅里面放一些油，放一些香料，再放一些蔬菜，把它炒熟。那么整个电饭锅就做了一顿完整的一餐。
So it all happens in the span of about 45 minutes.
整个做完的话就花30-40分钟。
Much of the time, that thing just stays by itself.
大部分时间它都是自动完成的。
So many of our early meals were cooked in that contraption.
早期我们大部分时候做饭都是用这个电饭锅来做的。
And we did this oftentimes in hotel rooms.
有时候是在宾馆做的。
In the early days, in the 80s, things were quite backwards.
80年代还比较落后。
We didn't stay in very good hotels.
住的酒店条件也不好。
So, the smells would be coming
所以做饭的时候
from the cooker.
我们做饭就是这厨具里它也会散发出味道。
So people, they would knocking on the door.
就会有人敲门。
What's going on in there?
里面在做什么？
Are you cooking?
你在里面做饭吗？
No, we're not cooking. No
就
cooking.
说没有，你没在做饭。
Yeah. That's when we opened the window, we lit incense, anything to cover the smell,
所以我们就想各种办法能把味道遮住。我们打开窗户，或者是燃一根香。
This was what Prabhupada had.
而当时圣帕布帕的条件也就是这样。
And while he was on that ship for a month, he cooked for himself.
他在在船上，他就是在给自己做饭。
He even held one Janmashtami on the ship,
甚至在船上他自己过了Janmashtami。
where he somehow cooked a feast for the whole crew.
Janmashtami 的时候，他给船上所有的乘客都做大餐。
And then he spoke on the glories of Lord Krishna.
他讲述了圣主 Krishna 的荣耀。
As well, he had some kirtan with them.
还和他们一起 kirtan 唱诵。
So probably carry this. He cooked in the west with it at the beginning as well.
就这些圣帕就到了西方。
So he's going to the west.
就来到了西方。
Let's do a little review here.
我们来复习一下。
Let's note the progressions of how Prabhupada's mission unfolds.
我们看一下，圣帕布帕的使命是如何蔓延开的。
You have to go back. You have to go back and make sure they get it. Okay, you back? Can you recall?
还想得起来吗？
What was the initial seed?
最初的那个使命的种子是什么
？1922年，圣帕帕见到领导是线上无体从弟子顶拜，然后他的领导是受过教育的年轻人，你应该把这个Krishna智觉用英语传播到西方。
Yeah. He gets the instruction. Prabhupada gets the instruction from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
他使命的种子就是首次和他的领导师会面，得到了这个讯息。
What's next? What's next? What are you doing, Ita? You know what you're doing? What's next? What's the next step? What happens?
下一步是什么？
Huh? Seed is planted, then what?
种子播下了以后，后来发生了什么？种子发芽。
What happens when you plant a seed? What happens when you plant a seed?
播完种子之后会发生什么？
Huh? It begins to sprout. So what was the sprout?
种子发芽是哪件事情是说明种子开始发芽？God initiation.
Okay? Something before that? Something after what? So what happens? What's next? Has meetings, right? Starts have meetings with the spiritual master, gives instructions.
在此之前，他也几次见到他的灵性导师，得到了一些训示。
Right? It's like watering the seed, so it's starting to sprout.
那这几次的会面，就好比是在给他对最初的种子浇了水，于是它慢慢的发芽。
Then?
后来又发生了什么？
Initiation. Initiation. Prabhupada gets his new name. Beads.
接受了启迪，得到了新的名字，还有念珠。
What name did he get?
他得到的启迪的名字是什么？
Oh. What name did he get at initiation? Abhay Charan Das.
他的启迪名字就是 Abhay Charan Das。
What does Abhay Charan mean?
Abhay Charan 是什么意思？
所畏惧。
One who is fearless. Fearless in what?
无惧，还有什么？
让是莲花族。
Charan means fearless.
Yeah. It's fearless, having taken shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna.
因为脱避了 Krishna 的莲花族而并无所畏惧的人。
What's next?
接下来的是什么？
You're showing them everything. He pleases Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So it's blessed. His mission is blessed, yeah, by, creating that, composing that very beautiful poem. He's captured the essence of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's teachings.
他因为在 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 的雅思布教上，献出的这一首诗，抓住了Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 教导的精髓，取悦了他的灵性导师，于是他的使命的蔓腾就得到了祝福。
What's next?
接下来呢？
What happens next? How?
是怎样得以确认的？
古鲁玛拉就说，无论这个阿拜卡写了什么，都把它看证出来。
Maharaja said, whatever he
Yeah.
writes,
Publish it. Okay. Then? Missions confirmed. He appeals to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, what service he should perform. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur again confirms the same instruction he gave in 1922.
他的使命是如何得以确认的？就是他在写信问他的灵性导师，他要做些什么服务的时候，他的灵性导师给了同样的，他第一次给予的同样讯息。
Okay, the three blessings. What are the three blessings?
他得到了哪三个祝福？
What three blessings did Prabhupada receive?
巴巴德得到的三个祝福是什么？
1935.
35年。
What's that? Yeah, that's one. If you ever get money, print books.
有钱就印书。
Then?
第一个是祝福。 哪两个祝福？
因为你把Krishna世界传播到世界。
You become excellent English preacher.
That one. Huh? That's the end. What are the 3 blessings? 1935.
1935年他得到的3个祝福是什么？
That's a Radhakund meeting, right? There's 3 blessings. One is the books.
他那个他领导是说，让他们跟他神圣地分开，他时候到了，他会自己会做这一切。
His spiritual masters live separate from the others. Within the times, right? He should contribute to that.
That was a blessing. He in kind of blessing in disguise that he was warning Prabhupada on one side. He said there'd be a fire in the mat, and so therefore he was blessing him in a sense to do what he needed to do to fulfill the instruction. He had to be prepared for that.
实际上，这个也是一个祝福，因为他提醒了他高调曼即将会发生的烈火，同时他提醒圣帕帕的他做出准备，做他应该做的。
When that God brother suggested that he should become president of the mat, no, Prabhupada said no, he'll do everything. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said he'll do everything at the right time.
他的神兄弟建议圣帕帕的来管理至高殿曼的时候，他的灵性导师说，时间到的时候他会做一切的。
Okay. What are you doing that time? What are you doing? There? Okay. Can you remember how the mission kind of gradually unfolded from the 40s to the 50s to the 60s?
大家还记得，能想起来这个使命是从40年代到50年代，再到60年代是怎样去推展的吗？怎样发展的？
Go ahead. He starts back to Godhead. Wrote to Gandhi. He's appealing to all these people. He's trying to get their support. He's trying to enlist them to work with him.
他向各大政要去写信下去，寻求他们的协助。
He starts back to Godhead.
也开始了回归守神杂志。 And established a league of devotees.
He establishes a league of devotees. Yeah. What else? A major one.
还有什么几个重要的事件？ Renounce.
Yeah, he takes sannyas.
是接受了三年式。
Okay. Then, what else happens? Major thing happens after he takes sannyas in Vrindavan.
在他在本达的接受三年式之后，又发生了哪几件大事？
Well, he's sitting in Vrindavan. What happens? Something happened. It was a catalyst. It was a catalyst for him going forward.
在他在本达的时候发生了哪个事情，算是他让他往前走的一个催化剂。 Power exchange.
Huh?
His wife.
Okay, that's a step. Certainly, that's a step.
这也算是往前走的一步。
Before he took sannyas, obviously.
这是在他接触三年之前。
But he's a Radha-damodar. He's translating. What happens? Someone comes. Someone inspires him. Who does that?
他在 Radha-damodar 写书的时候，是谁给他鼓励和启示？
Srila Rupa Goswami.
Rupa Goswami 给了他启示。
He now tells him he must act on the order.
让他必须现在就开始执行训示了。
What does he do then?
之后他是做了什么？
He goes to the airport, gets on the 747, bound for New York. Yeah, that's what he does?
是不是去了机场买了去美国的机票？
What happens?
那他做
Yeah.
了什么？
He flew first class.
是坐头等舱。
Yeah. What happened? What happens? Huh?
That's word from what Maharaja got free.
Yeah. So he gets on a luxury cruise ship, and he has a very pleasant journey to go to America.
是不是坐上了一座豪华的游艇，然后一路顺风的到达了美国呢？货船
Cargo ship.
货船
Yeah. Who gives him passage?
是谁给他这个船票的呢？
Who is that?
是谁呢？
Remember the name?
她的名字叫什么？这个女士名字
Sumati Morarji. Who is she?
她是谁呢？
Chairman of the board of the Scindia freight lines or cargo freight lines, whatever.
这个 Swami Maharaja 他是森迪亚货船公司的董事会的主席。
Then he gets on the Jaladuta, right?
他登上了加拉杜帕号。
What happened on the voyage?
在整个旅行过程当中发生了什么？
What?
Hard pass
Two. How many?
2次是吗？
对，中大。
Two. Then what?
之后又发生了什么 ？Krishna appeared in his dream.
Stream.
His dream.
Yes. And what was Krishna doing? What was Krishna doing?
Krishna 在做什么？
Standing with flute? What was he doing? Huh?
驾船
Boating.
Rowing a boat. Boating. Rowing a boat. What did he say?
Krishna 是怎样安慰他的呢？怎样鼓励他的 ？Upper by whatever.
He'll provide. Just come along.
只是继续去努力，不会停够。
And from that point, Prabhupada describes that the journey was very smooth.
据需要帕帕的描述，自从那次梦之后，接下来的旅程就非常的顺利。
And the captain of the ship, this Mr. Pandey, I think his name was, he said it was the smoothest crossing they had ever experienced.
船长潘烈就说，这次的航行是我航海生涯以来最顺利的一次。
Yeah. So Prabhupada is now about to arrive.
是帕帕的即将到达美国。
Yeah. So it's just noontime now.
已经到中午了。
And I think rather than to try to get through another one, we'll leave that for this afternoon.
我们接下来下一课就放到下午。
And we'll finish with a little kirtan.
还是以一段 kirtan 来结束今天上午的讲课。
And as we prayed in the beginning that our heart may open to receive the message.
刚开始的Kirtan我们的祈祷打开心，能够接受要聆听的讯息。
Now pray that your heart will be able to retain the message.
接下来这段Kirtan我们祈祷，我们的心能够留住听到的信息。
Pray to Prabhupada.
现在说到Prabhupada的祈祷。
Pray to Giridhari.
下面是哥尼派祈祷。
Pray to all of our illustrious spiritual preceptors that they may allow whatever has come into our hearts to remain.
但是我们杰出的心灵性导师祈祷我们聆听到的都能够留在我们的心中。
So now we begin with lesson 2.
那我们开始来讲第二课。
We're still in the Sambandha section.
第二课也属于Sambandha的范畴。
And we hope this afternoon we'll get through lessons 2 and 3, and then we'll finish Sambandha and go on to Abhideya tomorrow.
希望今天下午能够完成第二课、第三课。前三课讲的是Sambandha，讲完Sambandha之后，希望能够进入下一个阶段Abhideya。
So in the first lesson, we looked at the Guru principle.
首先，我们看一下灵性导师原则。
What the Guru is.
灵性导师是什么？
Why we need a Guru.
为什么我们需要一个 Guru？
How the Guru is one.
为什么 Guru 是同一位？
How the Guru is different.
为什么 Guru 又是不同的？
And how all Gurus are manifestations of the mercy of Krishna.
为什么说所有的 Guru 都是 Krishna 仁慈的不同展示？
So now we're going to look at the founder Acharya principle.
首先，我们来看一下创办灵性导师原则。
And we'll begin with a quote from a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to one person.
先来看
Hari Bol.
给人的信件当中的一些节选。
Disciplic succession means to accept the disciplic conclusion.
这封信当中还讲到说，使徒传系意味着接受使徒传承中的结论。
Krishna's message is coming down through the disciplic succession.
Krishna 的讯息是通过使徒传系传递下来的。
Same message without change.
同样的信息添加更改，
Nothing new.
没有添加新的东西。
The principles cannot change.
原则不能更改，
But sometimes the details can be adjusted by the founder Acharya.
但创办灵性导师有时候可以对于细节做一些调整。
One example of that.
可以举一个例子，
When Prabhupada held the first initiation ceremony,
施拉帕帕格在第一次举行启迪仪式的时候，
he thought to follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
他在考虑要继续追随他的灵性导师圣巴克西丹萨勒斯瓦蒂塔库尔定下的标准。
And the standard in his society was to chant 64 rounds a day.
他的灵性导师的社团定下的标准是每天念诵至少64圈。
But devotees at that time found that very difficult.
可是当时的奉献者觉得每天64圈太难了，
So then he reduced to 32 rounds.
于是施拉帕帕的就减到了每天32圈。
When devotees found that too very difficult,
奉献者还是觉得太难，
then he said 16 and no less.
于是施拉帕帕就说那就16圈，再不能太少了。
So 16 is the bare minimum if one is serious and wants to go forward in devotional service.
所以对于一个真诚的想在奉爱服务当中取得进步的人来说，每天念诵16圈是最低的限度。
Sometimes we think that's too much.
有时候我们会觉得16圈都太多了。
And how we wish we were the founder Acharya so we could reduce it even further.
我们有时候甚至希望创办灵性导师再减低一点。
But fortunately, we're not.
但不幸的是，我们没能让它减得再少。
And therefore, the standard will remain at a minimum of 16 rounds per day.
所以现在一直保持的标准就是每天至少16圈。
And because Prabhupada said his books will be the law books for the next 10,000 years,
因为舍勒帕帕说他的书籍将会成为万年法典。
because that's a golden period in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Sankirtan movement.
因为 接下来的1万年将是Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 3天中西送圣名运动的黄金时段。
From 500 years ago,
从500年前开始
when Mahaprabhu appeared,
，500年前是马哈帕布显现的时候。
and 9,500 years in the future.
那接下来还有9500年。
So after that,
在这万年之后，
perhaps one of you will become the founder acharya,
或许我们当中的一位会成为创办灵性导师，
and maybe you will be empowered to adjust the chanting to a lower number.
到那时候，也许你会被赋予力量，作为创办灵性导师，有权利把每天念诵的圈数再减少。
But until that time,
但直到那个时候，
we continue to follow our founder acharya
在
Srila
那个时
Prabhupada.
候之前，我们还是得遵循我们的创办灵性导师圣帕布帕的定下的标准。
Now Prabhupada also introduces something in addition here.
这里圣帕帕的也强调了其他的一些要点。
Someone read that loudly.
有没有哪位奉献者可以大声读一下？
Who has a loud voice?
你大声的读一下。
Do you have a loud voice? Loud.
使徒传系并不意味着一个人要成为某人的直接门徒阿尔朱纳，接受 Krishna 为至尊人格守神。在Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 的使徒传系中，我们也接受这同一真理，与同一事物同等的各个事物之间也是互等的。另一个例子是多枝干的一棵树，这里一片叶子，那里一片叶子。但是如果你从这里取一片叶子，从那里取一片叶子，将两者挤压，你会发现它们的味道是一样的。味道就是结论，从味道你就能明白两片叶子来自同一棵树。1969年1月25日，洛杉矶，给不会吧？
There?
不会念那个。
Okay. Yeah, that's less important who it was to. Yeah, so like a tree,
就像一棵树。
the conclusions that are taught by the different gurus in disciplic succession, Prabhupada compares them to leaves, and the leaves have the same taste, the same conclusion.
是在帕帕的把使徒传系当中的灵性导师的教导比作是一棵树上的叶子，这个结论，使徒传系当的教导就像叶子一样，它的结论是一样的。
Now, sometimes someone may think, how wonderful it would be if we could hear from Krishna directly.
有时候我们会想，如果能够直接从 Krishna 那里聆听该多好。
But actually, we are.
但实际上，我们就是直接从 Krishna 那里聆听。
Because when we hear from Srila Prabhupada,
因为当我们听施拉帕帕的讲述的时候，
it's identical with hearing directly from Krishna.
这和直接听 Krishna 讲述没有分别。
Because he has heard through disciplic succession, and in fact, he's heard from Krishna directly.
因为施拉帕帕的本人就是从使徒传系聆听的，从使徒传系聆听就无异于从 Krishna 那里直接聆听。
There was an instance, one reporter, he started to ask Prabhupada, how do you come up with your purports?
有一次，有一个记者问到施拉帕帕的说：“你的书籍的要旨都是怎么写出来的？”
And Prabhupada answered that Krishna dictates what I write.
施拉帕帕的说：“我写的这些全都是 Krishna 口述给我的。”
And one overly intelligent disciple thought, this is too much. So what he said, what Prabhupada really meant is that he looks at the original Sanskrit text, and then he refers to the commentaries of various acharyas, and he gets different points, and he correlates, and then he puts that in his own words in the form of his purport.
有 位过分聪明的门徒，他以为施拉帕帕的不理解，他觉得施拉帕帕的这样的回答，对于记者来说太过分了，应该接受不了。于是他就试着给记者解释，施拉帕帕的意思是说，他把看了原来的梵文的原文，又提取了先辈灵性导师的评注，最后结合起来才写下了他现在的钥匙。
Prabhupada said no.
施拉帕说不是。
Krishna dictates every word that I write.
他说每一个词都是 Krishna 口述给我的。
So therefore Prabhupada's words are non-different from Krishna.
所以我们说施拉帕帕的话语和 Krishna 亲口说的话没有分别。
This is Shabda Brahman.
这些话语都是 Shabda Brahman.
This is transcendental sound vibration
是超然的音震，
in the form of written language.
是以书面形式呈现的超然的音震。
So if one hears those words,
如果一个人能够聆听这样的话语，
the consciousness will be purified.
他的知觉必然會得到淨化。
Yeah. Just by hearing. Just by
只是通過
hearing.
聆聽。
Prabhupada gave the example of a power plant that was positioned on the outskirts of a city.
施拉帕帕举到一个例子，就像是安置在郊区的发电站一样。
And even though it's so far away, it's producing power, even though it's so far away,
虽然说它地处偏远，但它依然在向不同的地方发着电。
through the process of wires,
通过不同的电路，
the electricity is coming from a far distant place right here.
电就可以从遥远的发电站那里一直传到这里来。
And if we plug into any outlet box,
无论我们插上哪个插头，都可以接通电源，
we'll be connected with the power plant.
都可以和发电站连接起来。
So Krishna's the original power plant.
Krishna 就好比这个最原初的、最早的那个发电站，
And the wires of disciplic succession are coming down.
我们就是通过使徒传系这个线路电线来连接起来的。
And if we plug in,
如果继续插上电源，
then we're directly connected with Krishna.
插上电源，我们就能直接的和 Krishna 连接起来。
Now, here's an interesting phrase that Prabhupada introduces in the 10th canto.
第10篇圣典文教晚谈第10篇当中，施拉帕帕德讲到了一个很有意思的短语。
The Acharya Sampradaya is strictly bona fide, therefore one must accept the Acharya Sampradaya. Otherwise, one's endeavor will be futile.
他说，先辈灵性导师传系 Acharya Sampradaya 是严格而纯正的，因此一个人应该接受先辈灵性导师传系，否则一个人的努力就会是无效的。
And it's from this Acharya Sampradaya concept that the founder Acharya phrase emerges.
Founder Acharya 就是创办灵性导师这个短语，就是从 Acharya Sampradaya 先辈灵性导师传系这个词来的，
It's not just something that Prabhupada dreamt up.
并不是施拉帕帕的编造出来的一个术语，
It's not something he created.
也不是他自己创造的，
It's something which he imbibed from his own spiritual master. And in fact, we see, and as we study all different sampradayas, they have founder acharyas.
那么其实创办灵性导师这个术语是他从他的灵性导师那里吸收过来的。如果我们仔细去研习不同的 Sampradaya 传系的话，我们会发现不同的传系都有他的创办灵性导师，
So like a seed.
就像是种子。
We see that the six Goswamis, in the 16th century, just after Mahaprabhu's disappearance, they founded what is called, as you see here, the Vishva Vaishnava Raja Shabha. And it was meant to facilitate association.
创办灵性导师这个词，它也是有它的种子，有它的根源的。16世纪是查达尼玛哈帕布隐之后，他的主要门徒文达伦的6个 Swami 就创立了 Vishva Vaishnava Raja Sangha， 这个是为了让奉献者能够更好的联谊而成立的一个组织。
Organization is required to properly facilitate even one Vaishnava Sangha group, what to speak of a worldwide movement.
即便是一个 Vaishnava Sangha 奉献者联谊的小组，都是需要有一个组织的，更何况全球范围内的一场大的灵性运动。
So the 6 Goswamis, they would meet regularly.
6个 Swami 他们经常会定期的会面。
And of course, they discuss philosophy,
会一起探讨哲学，
preaching,
会传教，
and also, perhaps most importantly, how to improve themselves.
或者最重要的，他们谈论的话题就是怎样提高、改善自己。
This is a very important purpose of Vaishnava
这
Sangha.
是 Vaishnava Sangha 奉献者联谊的最重要的一点。
Now, even though the 6 Goswamis were very, very exalted personalities,
虽然6个 Swami 已经是非常崇高的灵魂了，
having their spiritual forms as manjaris,
他们有灵性的形体，他们灵性的形体就是 Manjari。
still when they met, they would ask one another, what do you see in me that can be improved?
即便如此，他们6个人在见面的时候还会互相问对方：“你看到我身上还有没有可以改善的？”
And whatever advice would come from another one of the Goswamis, they would very deeply take to heart.
其他人给出的建议，他们都会深入的去吸收，都会放进心里。
Most of us don't like that.
这是我们大部分人不喜欢的。
Most of us don't like to hear that there's some area in which we can improve.
我们大部分人不喜欢听别人说我们还有哪些地方需要改善。
There's always a tendency to think that I'm the best.
我们都很容易想我是最好的，
I am the greatest.
我是最伟大的。
Thanks to our good friend, the false ego,
那多亏我们的好朋友假我，
it enforces this false notion
假我就更加的强化了我们的这个错觉、错误的概念。
that whatever I think is the best,
假我会让我们觉得，我所想的都是最好的，
my way of doing things is the best,
我做事的方式是最好的，
and I'm just the best.
总之我就是最好的。
I realize that.
我意识到这一点了。
The problem is nobody else does.
问题是的，其他人却没意识到这一点，
So I'm going to spend my whole life explaining that to them,
所以我要花一生的时间向所有人解释，我就是最好的，
until which time they agree with me.
直到他们同意这一点。
And this is the nature of material life.
物质生活就是这样。
But the Goswamis, they were free from false ego, obviously, and they were in their real ego, which was only in the mood of service.
而6个 Swami 他们是完全摆脱小我的，他们始终处在真我之中，真我就是总是处在服务的心态。
They truly wanted to improve themselves.
他们是真心想要提高自己。
Now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he explains that this particular Sangha was meant to worship, he calls the king of the world's Vaishnavas, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
是 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 说到这个 Vaishnava Raja Sangha 是崇拜全世界 Vaishnava 之王 Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 的奉献者集会。
Whose is that? Generally, when we come together,
那一般而言，当我们聚在一起的时候，
there's a tendency to speak what is called Gramya Katha.
Ramya Katha， 我们经常聚在一起的时候，容易去谈 Ramya Katha。
The literal translation of Gramya is village talks.
Ramya Katha 的直译就是村落的闲谈，
Gossip,
或者是闲言碎语，
politics,
或谈政治、
business,
谈生意，
the weather,
谈天气，
anything but Krishna.
什么都谈，就是不谈 Krishna。
That is not Vaishnava Sangha.
这个不是 Vaishnava Sangha 奉献者的联谊。
That is the kind of Sangha that degrades one.
刚刚说到的这些性质的联谊，会让我们变得堕落。
This is also known by another name.
还有一个名字，
Srila Rupa Goswami, he explains, this is called prajalpa.
这样的联谊是拉鲁帕斯瓦米把它称为是Prajalpa，
Basically just speaking nonsense.
也就是说一些无用的话。
So Rupa Goswami says there are 6 components to good Vaishnava Sangha.
是拉鲁帕斯瓦米说，好的奉献者的联谊有6部分。
Offering gifts in charity,
给予礼物，
accepting charitable gifts,
接受礼物，
revealing one's mind in confidence,
吐露心声，
inquiring confidentially,
私下里面去询问，
accepting prasad.
接受普沙达。
That's the only one we really like.
这6个爱心交流当中，我们最喜欢的就是接受普沙达，
Doesn't require much effort.
也不需要下多大功夫。
Well, of course, we have to use the hand to grab the thing, or our hands to grab the food, and then it's a lot of effort to bring that hand up into our mouth.
当然，即使是接受普沙达，也是需要下功夫的。你看，你要很努力的要把食物拿到手里，要使劲下很大功夫才要送到嘴里，也需要下功夫的。
Especially if it's a lot.
尤其是你们接受了很多普沙达的时候，
Then, of course, we have to use the jaw muscles.
还要用我们的口腔肌肉，
So it's a lot of work, actually.
所以说还是很辛苦的。
Then we go to the stomach for the digestion.
然后还要把食物送到胃里，还要消化。
So for many, it's a big job.
所以说，对于大部分人来说是接受普沙达也是很辛苦的一件事。
Usually, we enjoy accepting,
很多时候我们都很喜欢接受普沙达，
but not as much to offer.
但并不喜欢去给予。
Because offer means you have to spend the time
因
to
为
cook.
给予普沙达的话，你得花时间去做，
More labor is required.
是需要更多的努力的。
But actually, Vaishnavas, they enjoy actually cooking and serving more than being served.
但实际上，Vaishnava奉献者他们更喜欢去做饭，然后给奉献者派发普沙达，胜过喜欢接受。
They enjoy offering gifts in charity more than receiving them.
奉献者也更喜欢去给予礼物，而不是接受礼物。
Yeah. Nature of a Vaishnava is to serve.
Vaishnava 本性使然，他们喜欢去服务。
So this is what the Goswamis were speaking about.
那个 Swami 他们的联谊就是在谈论这些问题。
So we can call this the organizational seed.
所以刚刚说的那个 Swami 成立的这个奉献者联谊的组织，可以说是创办灵性导师这个词汇的种子的组织种子。
Now we're going to study the philosophical seed.
接下来我们看一下它的哲学种子、哲学基础。
Read this quote.
我们一起来读一下。
So, a distinction now is being made amongst spiritual masters.
这里区分了灵性导师。
There are great acharyas that we follow under the direction of a spiritual master.
这里谈到有伟大的先辈灵性导师 Acharya， 我们是在自己的灵性导师的指导下追随这些伟大的先辈灵性导师 Acharya 们的步伐。
And sometimes this can be compared to a child who early on sees parents as everything.
就有时候我们会举一个例子，就像小孩子刚开始的时候会把父母看作是一切，
Then as a child matures,
孩子慢慢成熟之后，
begins to see other relatives.
慢慢越来越成熟的时候，他会再认识到其他的亲戚。
So in a similar way, we may only be focused on our spiritual parents, so to speak,
可以说，我们也 多的专注在自己的灵性父母上。
And that may extend to, certain spiritual relatives.
这个就好比是灵性的父母和我们的灵性的亲戚不一样。
The Diksha and the Shiksha gurus is everything.
我们刚开始的时候也会把我们的启迪灵性导师和训示灵性导师当成一切。
But then as our spiritual vision matures, we'll begin to understand that there are very great acharyas who came.
当我们的灵性在奉爱服务当中越来越成熟的时候，会发现除了我们的启迪灵性导师和训示灵性导师以外，还有伟大的创办灵性、伟大的先辈灵性导师到来。
So now we're going to look at how one very famous disciple saw his great initiating guru in relation to even a greater acharya.
接下来看一个非常有名的门徒，他是怎么看待他的启迪灵性导师的？他把他的启迪灵性导师看作是比伟大的acharya更加伟大。
And this, of course, is Srila Narottam Das Thakur.
这是 Narottam Das Thakur 所说的。
So here, in this particular bhajan, he says, when will my master Lokanath Goswami take me with him and place me at the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami?
在这首跋战当中，是Narottam Das Thakur 说，何时我的主人 Lokanath Goswami 才会带着我，将我置于圣 Rupa Goswami 的莲花湖上。
So Lokanath Goswami was his Diksha guru.
Lokanath Goswami 是 Narottam Das Thakur 的启迪灵性导师。
But he saw his Diksha guru as someone who is going to take him to even a greater acharya in our line, who of course, was for all Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Srila Rupa Goswami is that personality.
所以在这里，圣Narottam Das Thakur 把他的启迪灵性导师当作是一个能够让他带他更好的去接近先辈的灵性导师，也就是Gaudiya Vaishnava传系当中的Rupa Goswami 的人。
Actually, Prabhupada said that we are all Rupa Anugas. We're following in the footsteps of Srila Rupa Goswami.
圣法布拉说，我们都是 Rupa Anuga， 是 Rupa Goswami 的追随者。
So now this is our cultural seed, and now we're going to look at the linguistic seed.
刚刚我们看到的是创办灵性导师这个词的文化背景、文化种子。接下来我们看它的语言学的种子。
Where Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he begins to introduce something.
在这里是了 Bhaktivinoda Thakur 介绍了一些。
He says, Adyachara Vini, one who is the original acharya of a sampradaya.
他说，这是Sampradaya Adyacharya Ini 是指一个使徒传系中最初的 Acharya。
He says that he is Guru Shiromani, the crest jewel of all the gurus.
Guru Shiromani 指的是所有 Guru 中的顶级珠宝。
So, more than 300 years after the organizational, philosophical, and the cultural seeds for Founder Acharya were planted, then Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he takes it a little bit further with the linguistic, and he says that he's the crest jewel. He is the founder, the original founder of a sampradaya.
在创办灵性导师这个词的文化种子、哲学种子和组织种子被播下300多年之后， Bhaktivinoda Thakur 又播下了这个创办灵性导师的语言学的种子。他说，创办灵性导师指的是所有部落中的顶级珠宝。
And he tells us how how essential it is to follow the founder Acharya.
他也强调了要追随创办灵性导师步伐是多么的关键。
A long thing? Sorry? You change it to what? It's English. Okay, just go back. She can translate it. You want to translate that? Just translate this.
Sambandha Dhyana 或者是 从一个传系当中的创办灵性导师传递下来的这些教导，而这些原初的教导和一个传系当中的创办灵性导师都应该全方位的受到崇拜。一个人应该忠于创办灵性导师的结论和训示，不应该从其他的地方吸收训示。一个人应该只把严格的、忠实的追随创办灵性导师教导的人的训示当作是训示。从玛雅瓦蒂那里接受启迪或者教导是无用的。
So he tells us that this position of the founder Acharya is very, very special.
这段话就告诉我们，创办灵性导师的位置是非常特别的。
Because the teachings from the Sampradaya are coming through this founder Acharya.
因为一个传系、一个Sampradaya的教导就是通过这个创办灵性导师传递下来的。
And then all gurus who follow after him are merely his representatives.
所有追随他步伐的guru都是他的代表。
They draw their knowledge from him.
他们的知识也是从他那里接受来的。
They draw their even ability to connect others in disciplic succession by his authorization, by his direction.
其他的灵性导师之所以有能力将门徒和使徒传系连接起来，也是这个能力也来自于创办灵性导师。
So he always remains as the preeminent personality.
因此，创办灵性导师永远是一个传系当中最突出的角色。
So it's emphasized that it is essential to faithfully follow the teachings of the founder Acharya, generation after generation.
这就强调了一代又一代的忠实的追随创办灵性导师步伐的重要性。
So now this term founder Acharya emerges.
这就出现了 founder Acharya 创办灵性导师这个术语。
And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, following on from his father, he begins to start using it in his own publications.
是Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 开始在他创刊的和学者杂志当中首次运用这个词。
It appears in his Harmonists, which was a compilation of various articles.
这是一本称为和学者的杂志。
And you notice that he says that the founder Acharya is identical with the Gaudiya Math, with the institution. It's identical with the founder Acharya. There's no difference between Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and his organization.
这里谈到说，创办灵性导师和他所创办的社团是没有分别的，就好比是 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 和他创办的高迪亚曼是没有分别的。
And everyone who's associated in any way are merely the limbs of himself, of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
所有在这个处在这个社团当中的人都是 Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 的一部分。
Again, it appears he's now using this term, founder Acharya.
这个创办灵性导师这个词又一次在另外一个刊物当中出现了。
Now, the interesting point is this appears just prior to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance.
而这个杂志出版的时间正好是圣Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur 隐居前不久。
So it said that the last word is the most important.
都说人临终前的最后的话语是最重要的。
It's like we hear the whole Bhagavad Gita, but at the end Krishna says, Sarva Dharma Parityajam Mamikam Saradabhaja, that the goal is to surrender.
都说在谈话的最后的话语是最重要的。就像 Krishna 讲国家梵歌的时候，在最后一章他讲到放弃所有的宗教，只是归依于我。
So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wanted to emphasize this just before his departure, because it wasn't just like an important principle, but it was an essential principle.
因此，圣Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur在隐居前不久特别提出了这一点。这不光 当重要，而且是必不可少。
Now, one of the followers of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, quite a great scholar disciple,
圣巴蒂斯坦萨拉斯塔库尔的一个门徒，他是一个伟大的学者。
he explained that all the different sampradayas are coming through their founders, the founder acharya of this. All the teachings of the sampradaya are coming through this very unique individual, the founder acharya.
他的观点是，所有的 sampradaya 所有传系当中的教导，全都是通过这个传系的创办灵性导师得以世代相传的。
Can you read this for me, please?
我们一起来读一下。
So we have our 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas.
Vaishnava Sampradaya, Vaishnava 传系有4种，
One coming through Lakshmi Devi,
一个是来自于 Lakshmi Devi，
another through Lord Brahma,
一个是来自于主 Brahma，
the third through Lord Shiva,
第3个来自于主 Shiva，
and the fourth through the 4 Kumaras.
第4个传系来自于4 Kumara。
And let's go to the next one. He says that the 4 founder acharyas of the Iron Age profess to preach the views of those original teachers of religion.
这里讲到说，铁器年代的这4位创办灵性导师，都在传播宗教的最初的4位导师的教导。
So we'll look at a little comparison here.
我们来看一下这几个传系的对比。
And it shows how these different personalities, they receive the teachings from Lord Shiva, 4 Kumaras, Lakshmi, and Brahma.
这几幅图就向我们给我们看到了不同传系它的教导是怎样通过创办灵性导师来传递的。
And therefore we have Vishnu Swami, we have Nimbarka, we have Ramanuja, and we have Madhva.
不同的4个传系当中，它都有它的创办灵性导师，是Vishnu Swami、Nimbarka、Sri Ramanuja 以及 Madhva。
All 4 are bona fide.
这4个传系都是纯正的、权威的。
Some are more active than others.
有的比其他几个传系更活跃。
And of course, our line comes through Madhvacharya.
我们的传系就是 Madhva Acharya 这个传系。
Very similar in philosophy, but some different emphasis on a little different point.
这4个传系哲学是相似的，但是侧重点不一样。
Some are accentuating, you know that word? Some are emphasizing more our connection with the Supreme in oneness, some in difference. It kind of very subtle.
这几个传系之间它是有极微的区别的，有的更强调的是我们和至尊主的同一的一面，有的强调的是我们的不同的一面，相异性。
But then we have Mahaprabhu who comes.
马哈帕布之后到来了。
And he takes all these philosophies and he brings it to its fruition, which is Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, simultaneously one with and different from Krishna.
马哈帕布的教导师，马哈帕布将4个传系进行了融合，并且把4个传系的教导精华，让它达到了一个成熟的阶段，于是就形成了Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva，不可 可思议的记忆论。
Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he kind of gives a little bit of explanation here.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur 在这里做了解释。
And he kind of explains a little bit more what these personalities would teach.
他进一步讲述了这4个传奇当中的创办灵性导师教导的区
You read that?
别。
Good.
主说，他接受玛达瓦完全击败玛雅巴蒂哲学这一做法，以及他对 Krishna 的神像的服务。主接受 Ramanuja 不受 Karma 功利性活动和 Jnana 思辨污染的奉爱的观念，以及对奉献者的服务。主接受 Vishnu Swami 的教导中，只依靠 Krishna 的心态，以及 Radha Bhakti 之徒。主从 Nimbarka 接受托比 Radharani 的必要性，以及对于牧牛姑娘对 Krishna 的爱的高度尊重。
And it's only Mahaprabhu that is able to synthesize this, and he brings it all together, again, with the more complete concept of oneness and different.
只有马哈帕布将4个传系当中的精华进行了调和，并且把它让它达到了完整的阶段，于是就有了记忆论。
So what's clear out of all of this is that the founder acharyas, they're the foundational gurus for everyone in their disciplic line.
结论就是创办灵性导师是使徒传系中每个人的根本guru。
And they provide the core identity and relationship for all generations of their followers. They provide the core identity.
他们就提供了这样一个核心的身份。他们的核心身份就是接下来每一代的人的创办灵性导师。
So much for that. For all the followers that come afterwards.
未来的所有追随者的根本灵性导师。
And we see that particularly the two sampradayas that have fared the best over many hundreds, even not in thousands of years, is Ramanujacharya and we see the Madhvas, because they kept that core principle intact, that the founder Acharya was everything. Yeah, he was the glue, so to speak, that kept everyone together.
4个使徒传系当中有2个传系是 Ramanuja 以及是 Madhva 一直延续了千万年，就是因为他们是把这个原则一直保持的完好无损，也就是创办灵性导师是一切的一切，是他把这个社团这个传系凝聚起来的。
The Ramanujas, for example, they refer to the founder Acharya as the Udaraka. Udaraka means the deliverer of everyone.
Udaraka 这是属于Ramanuja 传系，把他们的创办灵性导师称为 Udaraka， 他是每一个人的拯救者。
And then those who follow him,
而之后追随他的人，
they're referred to as upakarakas, which means they're the benefactor spiritual masters who serve their founder by engaging their disciples in his mission.
然后他们的追随者被称为 Upakara。
What? It's upakaraka.
Upakaraka 是指的是追随这些创办灵性导师的人，他们在使都追随这些创办灵性导师的步伐，让这个传系的原则得以保存。
So we're going to apply this principle now to our own Gaudiya Sampradaya.
接下来我们把这个原则运用到我们的 Gaudiya Sampradaya 传系。
We have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is, of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Gaudiya 传系当中的Chaitanya Mahaprabhu，他是至尊灵的守生本人。
And we have the 6 Goswamis as the Sampradaya's Adi Gurus.
这个 Sampradaya 这个传系的 Adi Guru 就是6个 Swami， 最原初的 Guru。
And we have Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, of the founder of Charya of the Gaudiya Sampradaya.
Gaudiya Sampradaya 圣巴基斯坦的萨莱斯帕普尔。
Interesting, centuries before the Gaudiya Math was actually created.
高迪玛的成立前几个世纪以前，
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he saw a parallel between Krishna enlightening Brahma and Lord Chaitanya enlightening the six Goswamis.
Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami 看到了，就像 Krishna 给 Arjuna 训示一样，而 Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 给予6个 Swami 这个训示，这之间有相同的地方。
And he says, before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Brahma with the details of creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge.
主给予主 Brahma 内心启迪，给予他创造这个宇宙的各个细节知识，让这个物质宇宙才展示出来。
In exactly the same way, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Srila Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency.
同样的 Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 也将巨大的灵性能量注入了6个 Swami 的内心，并且在他们的内心揭示了本达们的逍遥时光。
By this potency, Srila Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna and Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory.
而Krishna 在本达们上面过的这些逍遥时光，很多人都已经忘记了，而这正是 Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 要揭示给6个 Swami 的。
In this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spread Krishna consciousness around the world.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 就是通过这样的方式把 Krishna 知觉传遍全球的。
And now, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he offers some conclusive statements about the founder Acharya.
关于创办灵性导师圣巴基斯坦塔库尔在这里提出了一些结论性的观点。
Yeah. Someone read that?
有没有人可以帮助读一下？
Go ahead.
一个人首先应该接受使徒传系中最初的部录，并根据其教导形式，在 Vaishnava 的使徒传系中，先前的 Acharya 们被尊重并确立为传系中的训示部录。
Yeah. So we accept the teachings of the founder Acharya as all in all.
所以我们把创办灵性导师的教导当做一切的一切。
We'll read on.
我们继续来读，我们一起读一下。
然而，创办灵性导师一个传系中最初的侮辱，会被恰当的崇拜并尊称为侮辱修玛尼。灵性导师中的顶级珠宝，他当面的哲学会被所有他的传系中的人所追随。任何与他的哲学理论相悖的教导都不会被接受。
Again, Guru Shiromani, he is the topmost crown jewel of all spiritual masters.
又谈到了 Guru Shiromani， 他是所有 Guru 当中的顶级珠宝。
So here are summary symptoms of founder Acharya, as explained by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
是了，Bhaktivinoda Thakur 讲到了创办灵性导师的一些特征。
He possesses great spiritual strength.
他拥有巨大的灵性力量。
His teachings take precedence over all others.
他的教导高于其他教导，是高于其他教导，
And are compulsory to follow.
是他的追随者都要遵守的。
He holds a unique post.
他的位置是独一无二的。
He is the Acharya or leader of all Vaishnavas when physically present.
当他亲身临在时，他是所有 Vaishnava 的 Acharya 或领导。
And finally, he awards power of attorney to his followers who strictly adhere to his teachings.
他会赋予严格遵守他的教导的追随者力量，做他的代表。
So, quick review.
我们很快来复习一下
Chapter 2. Let's talk about this now.
第二课的内容，我们回顾一下。
What do you remember about the organizational seed?
关于创办灵性导师的种子的组织的种子，
Where did the organizational seed come from?
组织种子是来自哪里？
Hmm?
Organization established by 6 Swami.
Yes. What's it called?
名字叫什么？那个 Swami 创办的这个联谊会名字叫什么？
The Vishvaraja Shabha. Yeah. Okay. Then what happens?
之后
What's next?
之后是什么？
What's the philosophical seed?
哲学的种子是什么？
Hmm? No one remembers. What are you doing? He's cheating.
作弊。
What do we know? What are we understanding here? Where's the philosophical seed?
哲学的种子是什么？
That's a philosophical seed? Huh?
Following steps of acharyas under the guidance of one's spiritual master.
And who's giving us this?
这一点是谁提出来的？
Yes, Rupa Goswami. Yeah, this is where it's coming from Srila Rupa Goswami. Okay. How about the cultural seed?
那文化种子大家还记得吗？